Good morning, Doctor. Today our group would like to present the duty of care that we need to exercise in discharging valuation service to client. First, let me introduce my group members, which are LING, Li Jiaxing, No AMELIA NATASHA, Tan Shang-Ying, and TEOH. Professional code of ethics is to inform the user of the service what is the opinion of the professional body constitute competence and ethical professional practice. Besides that, it also serves as a guide to its own member in achieving competency in professional practice in adhering to ethical standards. A professional valuer is expected to comply with the following ethical principles, which is integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. According to the Board of Valuers, Appraisers, Estate Agents, and Property Managers, there has some general code of conduct and ethics for registered valuers. First of all, every registered valuer are duty bound to render service to his clients with absolute fidelity. A registered valuer who acts as an estate agent to a transaction should not subsequently value the same property for the same purchases. Moreover, all valuation reports must follow the format and guidelines issued by the board from time to time when discharging your valuation service to your client. Besides that, the registered valuer should not allow or agree any non-registered valuer directly or indirectly in the profits of his professional work. In discharging your valuation service, a registered valuer must also inform his client of the nature of any business connections, interests, or other affiliation he may have in connection with the service to the client to avoid any conflict. Lastly, every registered valuer branch office should be headed by a assistant registered valuer.
Qualification and skill. Only registered valuers are permitted to conduct out values and provide such service for a fee according to the 6th edition of the Malaysian Valuation Standard. The Malaysian Value Standard 5 on valuation, qualification and conflict of interest assures that only valuers with appropriate knowledge, ability and competence to perform the valuation professionally can conduct out valuations. In Malaysian Valuation Standard 5, stated that prior to accepting an assignment to conduct a valuation, the valuer must ensure that he is a registered valuer under the Valuer, Appraiser, Estate Agent and Property Manager Act 1981 and has sufficient knowledge and competency to complete the assignment in accordance with these standards or generally accepted valuation principle. Where circumstances necessitated the appointment of independent valuer because of legislation or regulatory body requirement, such a valuer shall be one who has no significant financial interest in the client company, either directly or indirectly through partners, co-director, or close family members, or vice versa. Valuers preparing valuation report for submission to the Securities Commission Malaysia and or Bursa Malaysia Security Berhad must also ensure that they meet the definition of an independent valuer as defined in the Securities Commission Malaysia Asset Valuation Guideline and must make a declaration to that effect. A valuer shall refuse an instruction to carry out a valuation of an asset or property if he or his company is involved in the sale of or purchase of the asset or property as an agent within 1 year of the sale or purchase completion. The valuer must declare any past, present, and foreseeable future relationship with either the asset or property to be evaluated or the client that might result in or be seen as a potential conflict of interest. The valuer must also ensure that he meets any other legal or regulatory requirement which may be required by the client, their advisor, or other relevant regulatory body. Criteria as a valuer. Property valuer is to accurately assess the real worth of property and also the price that needs to be offered so as to form a successful and adequate sale. In practice, these suggest scheduling, creating and attending valuation and viewing, writing assessment letter, gathering viewing, comments and completing vendor care calls. Additionally, taking image and drafting floor layout for advertising material are a few things I do on occasion. This subsequent information, valuer need to record the location, building and site boundaries are measured, the numbers of rooms, their arrangement, and the way they furnish, the building overall condition, any noteworthy advancement that have occurred, any structural flaw, any sort of landscaping, any planning or other constraint, any possible hazards or opportunities. Obligation and responsibility as a valuer. Avoid reporting a misleading number. The professional valuer must avoid reporting a false amount. The outcome of valuation might be incorrect for two reasons: whether it is a drastically inaccurate estimate of the suitable value, or it is an estimate of an enough appropriate value, even if it is numerically precise. Satisfy the customer. The fundamental job of the valuer to his client is to achieve a complete, accurate, and relevant conclusion. As a result, ethics and morality are critical components of the valuer responsibility. Present data without bias. When hired by one of the parties in a dispute, it is unethical for the valuer to withhold facts, data, or opinion that contradict the case his client is attempting to make. It is the valuer's responsibility to convey fact analysis and value without bias, regardless of the impact of such unbiased presentation. Only provide assistance in the area expertise. Accepting an engagement for the valuation of asset that he is not competent to value, or in a sector outside of his professional categorization is not appropriate for a valuer. Serving customer with competing interests. When two or more potential clients request a valuer service for the same asset, or when competing interests are present, the valuer should avoid serving both parties. Ethical practice and competency, educational traditions, training, continuing professional development, practice, and experience all contribute to a valuer competency. Third party responsibility. Valuers should recognize their duty to parties other than the customer. Joint and several liabilities of valuer. When two or more valuers are hired to generate a joint report, the user has the right to presume that both valuers who sign the report are jointly and severally liable for the validity of the conclusion. Professionalism. To be skilled, a professional must be a high level of intelligence and substantial experience. Clients rely on the professional knowledge and talent of a valuer to the degree necessary to complete their work. Okay. The valuer also need to explain the valuation technique used with the customer, so the customer will knowledgeable regarding the house that to be valued.
Valuation standard usually is the rule of professions, a field, or industry. It also is an agreed upon way of doing or measuring something to make practice uniform, transparent, and comparable. Valuation standards include the Malaysia Valuation Standard and International Valuation Standard. For the Malaysia Valuation Standard, it comprises guidelines on valuations issued by the board. It should mandatory for valuer to complete, and this standard contains 90 standards, and each standard deals with specific topic. For the International Valuation Standard, it is to facilitate cross-border transactions and contribute to the viability of international market. Besides that, International Valuation Standard also serve as the key guide for valuation professionals globally and will underpin consistency, transparency, and confidence in valuations. And it also provides standards of valuations and financial reporting that meets the needs of the emerging and newly industrialized country.
Public sector organizations and private sector organizations have different scope of work. Public sector organization advises the federal government, state government, local authority in Malaysia on matters relating to the valuation of real estate and property services. The scope of valuation by public organization are real property gain tax, stamp duty, alienation of land, land acquisition, change in category of land use, privatization and corporatization, and rating. Private sector organizations deliver property valuation and consulting service to bank, insurance companies, institutions, public listed and corporate companies, property developer, investor, and private individuals for a wide range of commercial, residential, industrial, agriculture, and specialized property, as well as plant and machinery. The scope of work by public sector organizations are valuation for bank loans, compulsory acquisition valuation, valuation for fire insurance, initial public offering, intended sales or purchase, auction reserve, and foreclosure.
Now I would like to talk about the professional negligence. Negligence is a failure to take a reasonable care to another person and it causes injury, loss, and damage. A professional who fails to meet the basic standards while he is performing or giving the services and he causes any damages to the clients, then the client has the right to defend the judgment in the court of law. Here are some principles in professional negligence, such as duty of care, breach of duty, causation, standard of care, loss, breaking the chain, acts of claimant, bolong test, remorse, and eggshell school. The common valuation negligence are overvaluation. The valuer failed to provide copies of valuation obtained from comparable local evidence. Contributory negligence, reliance on earlier valuations, the wrong methodology used for calculation in valuation report, and the valuer failed to undertake a detailed review of the relevant documentation of the property.
There are some issues regarding valuation negligence. The first example is about issue of failure to disclose material information. Standard 8 of the Malaysian Valuation Standard provide that the valuation report should disclose any assumption, property description, or limiting condition that may affect the objectivity and directly affect the valuation, where appropriate indicating their effect on the value. This provision makes the valuer liable for failing to disclose material information. A Malaysia case that is Bank Bumiputera Malaysia versus Yoho 1971 is related to the valuation negligence. The plaintiff were banker having their registered office in Kuala Lumpur with a branch office in Malacca, while the defendant was a licensed appraiser and valuer having his business in Malacca as well. In November 1967, Wan Ali applied for a loan which was to be secured by a charge on his land. Before the loan could be approved, the plaintiff required a valuation report from a licensed valuer. The defendant valued the said land at $64,768.20, and the plaintiff approved the said Ali loan application based on the said valuation report. The land was charged to the plaintiff to secure the payment of $20,000 plus interest. Due to Ali default to pay the loan, the plaintiff applied to the collector of land revenue for an order for the aforesaid land to be sold under the provision of the National Land Code. The land was discovered to be swampy, with a large portion of it underwater, and could only be sold for $7,600. The land was finally sold to Wan Baharudin for $7,600. The plaintiff sued the defendant for damage allegedly caused by fraudulent valuation by the defendants as a valuer in respect of the said land and that he failed to exercise all due skill and care in valuing the said land. The court held the valuer liable for the bank loss as a result of the valuer failing to disclose the true position of the land, which the bank would not have to advance the loan if they had known it. The plaintiff's reliance on the said report had resulted in their advancing the loan to Wan Ali, and they thus suffered damage as the land was eventually sold for the true value of $7,600 as against the value put in the valuation report at $64,768.20. Another issue of valuation negligence is contributory negligence. Contributory negligence is the plaintiff as part of the responsible for their own loss due to failure to exercise reasonable care for their safety. A plaintiff is the party who brings a case against another party, the defendant. Contributory negligence can bar recovery or reduce the amount of compensation a plaintiff receives if their negligence is increased the chance of an incident occurring. Often, defendants use contributory negligence as a defense. In Australia case, ANL Security Proprietary Limited versus HTW Brewer Brisbane Proprietary Limited 2002, the borrower Campbell owned the land and sought refinancing from other financial institutions. The borrower obtained a valuation report from HTW, which valued the property at $1.576 million. Furthermore, the HTW appraiser also advised the lender, INL, could rely on the valuation report for mortgage security purposes. Therefore, the lender relied on this report to lend $950,000 to the borrower. However, the borrower defaulted on its obligation after 1 month. Finally, the lender enforced the right to realize the security and finally sold the mortgage land for a total of $592,367. However, in granting the loan, INL was negligent in not assessing the ability of Hemworth to make repayment of the loan. The result was that the lender made a substantial loss. Thus, INL sued HWW for misleading and deceptive conduct under Section 52 of the TPA. INL also claimed damages. The difference between the amount for which the land was sold and the amount of the loan plus interest. Court found that there were two independent causes for the appellant loss. First one, the respondent breached Section 52 of the TPA by providing an incorrect valuation of the real estate to the appellant. Second one, the appellant failed to take reasonable care to protect its interest as it did not properly investigate the ability to repay the loan of the borrower. The court held that the valuer had the misleading and deceptive conduct, thus ordered the HWW pay contributory negligence in the context of awarding damages under Section 82 and 87 of TPA. INL also awarded damages for 2/3 of the amount that they claimed.